What was your father's name?
Captain Lou Campione.
Okay.
How old was he when he entered the service?
21.
Which branch of the service was he in?
The United States Army, the 1st Infantry Division. He joined in 1939.
What countries did your father serve in?
They fought through pretty much all of Europe. They fought through North Africa, which was a pretty big campaign, and the battle raged for months through North Africa. And eventually they went to Normandy for the D-Day invasion, and then fought from Normandy through Germany. And once they had made the conquest in Germany, they started liberating concentration camps.
What was his highest rank?
Master Sergeant.
Tell us about what your father did in the service.
He wouldn't talk about his military service. Back in 1998, a movie came out called Saving Private Ryan, and a friend of his who was a sergeant in Vietnam ran into him, and they started trading war stories, and he told him, "You've got to see this new movie, it's excellent. It's called Saving Private Ryan." So one day I went to my mom and dad's house to check on them, as I normally did, and they're arguing, and they're fighting over the fact that she did not want them to see the movie. And after a couple minutes of arguments, Mom made a major mistake and turned to me and said, "What do you think?" And I said, "If he wants to go, I'll take him." The reason she didn't want him to see the movie was because whenever he saw a war movie, he would have nightmares. And the nightmares would go on for days. Today, we title that post-traumatic stress disorder. But back then, they called it battle fatigue, and you did what you had to do and you moved on. When he was discharged, a couple weeks later, he went back to work, and that was the end of it. But they didn't tell what had occurred while they were in the service. It wasn't proper to talk about it. So in 1998, I take him to movie theater on Delaware Avenue, and we see Saving Private Ryan. And after the movie, some guys with Vietnam patches on their jackets and baseball caps that said Vietnam vets saw his cap that had the emblem of the big red one on it and had some of his medals on it that he would always wear. And they came up to him and they saluted him and they thanked him for his service. Some of the girls were in the movie theater were crying at the end of the movie and realized that he was a World War II vet and came up to him and thanked him for his service. So that was really the first time he ever talked about it. And on the way home, I took that opportunity to say what was real about the movie, what was accurate, because he never talked about it. And he opened up and said that we weren't cursing, we weren't carrying on, that when Normandy came up, we were all convinced we were going to die. So we went and found a rabbi, a priest, a minister, and you made your peace with God because you didn't think you were going to make the landing. And he said, for my unit, 100 guys I landed with, about 90 were killed on the beaches. Because the enemy's up here, the beach is down here, so they were just picking them off as the gate would come down from the landing device. They were still on the water, and a lot of them actually died in the water. Omaha Beach water was red with blood, and if you look in the record of the history books, they repeat that so many were killed just coming off the ship. So he made it onto the beach. He was a master sergeant. He had a lot of guilt because a lot of his guys in his squad that he was responsible for didn't make it. But you had to keep moving because the enemy's shooting down at you. You couldn't stop. You couldn't do anything other than fight back. And he was one of the lucky ones that was able to make it through it. And after Normandy, they chased him all the way through Germany. And he always had those regrets. And that was the first time after all those years that he even opened up and talked about it. Because he had such guilt about his guys dying and him making it through there.
Are there any other stories about your father while he was in the service?
As I said, he didn't like to talk about it, but that probably is the one that will stay with me forever, especially from the spiritual end, because they had a face-to-face with God at that time, is the way he described it, that he tried to live his life that way ever since, that they all knew that they weren't going to make it, and only a few lucky ones did, but they had that peace about them. And if you girls get the opportunity to see Saving Private Ryan, at the end, Private Ryan goes to the cemetery at Normandy, because back then, the policy was you got buried where you were killed. They couldn't retrieve the bodies, so they were buried in Normandy beaches. And Ryan says to his wife and his family, because he's much older at the end of the movie, "Tell me that my life mattered." And again, I think that brings home the point about the spiritual aspect of war, that Ryan's life was saved, and a lot of people died saving his life, and it was important to him to know that he made that difference, that extra 40 or 50 years he got coming home from World War II, that he made that impact, that it wasn't for naught, that those guys that died to sacrifice their lives to save him didn't sacrifice in vain. So I think that's the most profound message that he gave, and I think a lot of veterans feel the same way, that made a point to them to have that relationship with God and their family and their country as a result of the sacrifice of those other veterans. Something we remember now on Memorial Day. 405,000 American soldiers were killed during World War II, so they all remember them and keep safe that memory. A book for the story of World War II and different battles. They referred to them as campaigns in different places that they occurred in Europe and Africa. This is a reenactment of what a soldier would look like. And you can see the big red 1 insignia on the shoulder. And that's the same infantry division that's highlighted in Saving Private Ryan. So that was the 1st Infantry Division, and they were one of the first to land at Normandy. And this is some of the equipment that they would wear. So it's a reenactment of what the soldier would look like as he's going in. These backpacks would weigh as much as 60 pounds. So as that gate, that landing device goes down, if he's not hitting something solid, there's an additional 60 pounds on his back, and he's going right into the water and may not come up from it and drown as a result because of the weight of the equipment they had to carry. And this is a baseball card. And on the back of the baseball card is Dad's story. So we go into the schools and we talk about what a real hero is and offer them this baseball card as somebody to emulate, to look up to as a hero. And that's one of the programs we do to remind students of the history of our country and the sacrifices that those people made for. And this is the film, Saving Private Ryan. And that's the captain that leads the mission to save Ryan. And most of those guys that were involved in that mission, with the exception of Ryan, were killed. But they did a lot of fighting while they're saving Ryan, even after they find Ryan, because he refuses to go home. His brothers had been killed, and he was going to get to go home, and he refused to go home. He said, "I'm here for a mission. I'm here to honor my brother's memories, so I'm going to fight." So most of the people there in that unit that went to save him were killed, and that was the issue with Ryan, that he wanted them, their memories preserved because they sacrificed their life to get him out. It was the anniversary of the release of Auschwitz that they went in and were able to get those people released. So he was there for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Poland, right?
Yeah.
So was he able to communicate with family members here when he was there?
They were able to send mail back and forth. I don't know how efficient it was because they didn't get it on a regular basis. And he told us that he had the ability to send his money home. So rather than getting paid, it went home, and you know, they saved it for him for his arrival back home. But there was one event where he was lost behind enemy lines. And the thing about that is, you're missing an action, but the only difference between missing an action and then saying that you've been killed in action is they didn't have a body, they didn't have a dog tag. Because you wear your dog tags around your neck. The body would remain there, but they would take your dog tag so they would be able to identify who was killed. So he was MIA, he was missing. And the only difference was they didn't have the body. He said that he got to leave at that time because the family was notified that he was MIA. And when he came home, went back to the house at 1206 Snyder, and the neighbor couldn't believe it was him because he was lost a lot of weight. He didn't appear as he did when he left. And he told them, they were at St. Edmund's praying for you. So he walks into church, And supposedly they all pass out from shock, but he's there, a miracle could answer. So he got a 30-day pass, but then he went back to the lines, he went back with your union after that. It's just to comfort the family that he actually wasn't dead, even though they were notified that he was missing in action.